If you often feel like you're not sure what's happening in a relational dynamic, you're not sure if you're bringing the past into it or that person is not good for you, you feel a sense of danger, you feel hypervigilant, all of these kinds of elements, this conversation is for you. There are really practical tools that Amy shares about how to navigate these situations, how to navigate your hypervigilance, how to begin to create relationships that actually feel nourishing and bring people into your life that are supportive of you, how to apologize. What does a good apology look like? Really good stuff. So I think you're going to love this one. Let's dive into it. All right. Welcome, Amy, to the podcast. So excited to have you.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So I want to dive right in. You talk about something that I think my people probably, and me personally,
All of us.
all of us for sure struggle with and are very curious about. Talk to us about if you have past trauma and you are so good at suppressing yourself, your needs, your desires, your feelings, and you're now in a relationship and your mind is just playing all the tricks on you. How the hell do you navigate that?
That's the core audience that I work with. I would say, first off, right, it's important to recognize that when you have past trauma, it is going to impact your relationships moving forward. And that's completely normal. You know, a lot of us don't realize that. I didn't realize that. And so I entered what were, by definition, healthier, safer relationships with people, not realizing the heck was happening to me. And I was like, is there something I'm so damaged? Was like my mindset, right? What is wrong with me that I'm anxious all the time and vigilant, about everything? And I wanted to talk about the tiniest little grievances, like nothing could get past me because I was trying to compensate for everything I had been through in the past. And so I think just having that awareness is really, really important because, like I said, I didn't. And so many people that come to me are often going, I don't know what's wrong with me. Is it them? Is it me? I know I've been through some stuff, but what is happening here and how do I discern, right? How do I tell the difference? So once we have that awareness, I think then it's easier to move into the place of I need to work off of something a little more tangible than what is coming up in my body, right? And I know your somatics and like it's a lot of what is coming up in our body, but bridging that gap with skills, something a little more tangible for someone with trauma is crucial. You know, relearning how to trust ourselves and trust those sensations in our body because it's very difficult to distinguish between am I just feeling anxious because that's a normal feeling to have in a new relationship? Am I feeling anxiety like this because it's reminding me of something in the past? Or are they actually doing something that is causing this reaction? And you'd be surprised how many times it is the past and how many times they're blaming it on the past when it's the actual present.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, okay. Maybe we could talk about different phases of the relationship because you mentioned the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So say you are a person like that and you have had relational trauma as a child, and maybe even then probably you chose, or however we want to phrase it, you chose partners, even friends that were very reminiscent of your caregivers, and you experienced the same things and it was all validated. And now you just think, oh my God, I'm too much. I'm so needy, right? I always need to talk about every little thing and I'm having all these feelings and I'm hypervigilant and I don't know if I'm actually in danger or not. And let's talk about the beginning of the of dating, let's say. What the heck does that person do?
Oh my goodness. Well, I think acknowledging that you're going to lean into what is familiar is a really helpful thing to realize, right? I think a lot of people have these mindsets like, well, I didn't have the best caregivers growing up. I don't want to have a partner, right? Or even a friendship or whatever it is with somebody who reminds me of mom or reminds me of dad or whoever it was. But the reality is that like, you're gonna, you're gonna, right? And it's much less about because the more you, first of all, the more you try to not be like those caregivers and the more you try to not choose people like them, the more you will. My experience, not everybody's but mine, right? So recognizing that it's much less about that and more about, let me identify what I value before I start my dating process. That's where I start everybody. Something a little more tangible to use as a compass versus, when everything's up here or we're feeling it all in here, it's really hard to take actionable steps in a practical way to date, have conversations, navigate a dating app, discern what we're choosing that might be similar and comfortable, because we don't realize that either. We like familiarity, we like predictability. It makes us feel safe. And so, I mean, I know from my experience when I started dating, I was like, well, dysfunction feels very familiar for me. And man, I could find a needle in a haystack. I could find every man on the block that was the most dysfunctional without even trying. So that was my compass. And we don't develop a new one until we start having new experiences. So the only way we can start choosing differently is like, let's write it down. Let's determine for ourselves based on those past experiences, what behaviors, this is what I do with every client, what behaviors do I value and what behaviors do I not value? And when we can look at that on paper, it's eye-opening for so many people. They go, oh, it was so easy for me to have that conversation. I didn't realize I didn't value half of what they were saying, right? I didn't realize they were invalidating me. I didn't realize they were actually being dismissive. Right. You didn't, until you took it out of your head and out of your body and put it down and looked at it and went, okay, now what do I do when I'm exposed to that? And start giving ourselves that direction.
Mm-hmm. Can you give us some examples of those things?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Of course, I've got millions. For me, an example I always give people was like, I grew up in a household where like we didn't have healthy forms of communication. It was always reactivity and a lot of screaming and yelling and name calling. And I never liked that. I didn't like it growing up. I didn't like it as an adult, but it was familiar. And so when I was in relationships with people and they started to raise their voice or get agitated with me or, something that was slightly disrespectful came out of their mouth, I kind of had this like narrative in my head of, well, you can deal with it. You've always dealt with it, right? You know how to deal with anything. I mean, look what you've been through. And so that was on replay. So I was like, yeah, not ideal, but they're human. It's okay. You've called people a bitch before, right? Like, and you
Totally.
justify it.
Totally.
Right. But the more you're exposed to it and the more you have those experiences, you're like, I really, that's that like self-worth piece, right? But I don't like to talk about it in sense of self-worth because when you've gone through relational trauma, self-worth is like, I was like, what is this concept? I couldn't grasp it. And it's just recognizing, wait, I don't want this. I don't deserve it. I don't need to choose it. I don't need to accept it. And so, so for me, it was like, I don't want partners that raise their voice when they're upset. And other people, and this is where we go wrong. We ask our friends, they're all operating off of their own experiences and beliefs and values. And they're like, well, that's not realistic, Amy. Well, yes, it is, because I don't raise my voice. I don't scream and yell. I actually don't call people names. That is what I want in a partner, right? So that's like the main example I give, but there's so many others in terms of like, I want honest, open, transparent communication with people in my life. And I wasn't used to that. I was used to people keeping secrets, withholding truths. And I was always an open book, and I was told, you share too much, you're annoying, you talk too much, you're just too much. And I was like, I like being too much. I lean into people. Like, I admire people who share themselves and are vulnerable or a little weird and quirky and goofy. I like that. I want that in return, right? And so we start to realize we set the standard, right? What I like and what I want and what I bring into a relationship, I can ask for in return. I don't have to accept and tolerate the opposite of it. I don't know if that answered the question,
No,
but
totally. And you brought up such a good point. It's funny. I was just talking about this with a friend a moment ago, where she was saying that she really doesn't like to be called out and seen deeply because it feels very exposing. And I was
mm.
saying that I love it. You know,
Oh, I love it.
it's a,
I love
yeah, it's
it.
actually one of my biggest needs that I've never had met. Uh,
Okay.
but you bring up such a good point where like we ask people for advice as part of our hypervigilance, don't we? And then everybody has very different needs in relationships and also enjoys different ways of being like shown up for, you know. And then your expectations are just crazy. Like
Yeah.
how do we kind of navigate? Because I actually do agree that very few people in this world know how to communicate well.
Mm, sure.
And then we're told this is a crazy expectation to have like a real apology or accountability. How do you talk to clients about this?
Mm. Like, is it unreasonable kind of thing?
Like you're
Like,
too
are
much.
the
You want too much. You're too needy. That's just
my
that's
my answer is always never and no, right? You're never asking for two. I mean, unless you're like, I want you to pay me $100,000 every single day of the month. That's a little bit like, okay, well, maybe pick your partner well, all right? But in terms of like our emotional needs and those behavioral needs, that's very different. And so nothing, and honestly, this took me a long time to really grasp, like just in myself, but nothing I am asking for out of my partner or the people in my life is too much. They're going to have limits, and I'm going to have to face those limits and accept them and decide whether I adjust my expectations of that person and that relationship, adjust how I show up in it, right? So maybe they hit a limit and I go, "Okay, noted, I can't be as vulnerable with this person." That might shift the whole relationship dynamic. I had to do that, with my caregivers. I had to reach a place where I go, I can't keep calling this one parent for advice when all they do is escalate and get really emotional, and I'm trying to get comfort and support, and now I'm comforting them for the thing that I'm coming to them for. Like, I did that cycle of crazy for a long time, and then I went, wait, I have agency. I could take this shit elsewhere and not here and choose. But like, what comes with that is acceptance of, well, how will I show up in this relationship now if they can't meet this need anymore or the way I need it met? I have to come to terms with, what does that mean for this dynamic, and getting clarity on that, right? So I had to get clear on, well, what can I talk to this person about? If I can't bring them the problems that I want or be vulnerable with them, what is that dynamic? But none of our needs that I love, first of all, I love, like you, tell me my blind spots, right? Show me my areas of weakness. Tell me where I'm getting it wrong. I live for that. Not everybody around me does.
unfortunately.
Not Yeah, not many people do. It's uncomfortable for sure, but it's something that I value and it's something that I like. And sometimes the people in my life, I can, and that's, I think, also key here, is they're not going to show up perfect right off the bat. You got to be able to say to them, I like this. I value this. Here's why, right? Here's why. And embody that too, right? You show up that way too. And give them a chance. Give them a chance to grow. Cause like that's the thing I see the most with people is they expect perfection because they're so scared of the need not getting met, of speaking up, of abandonment, of backlash, of punishment, whatever it is, rejection. So they just go, I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to hint, or I'm going to just keep it to myself. And, oh, wrong person. Oh, wrong person. Oh, and you're like, you didn't even give them a chance. Let them know what you need and let them fumble it. Give them a chance to mess up, or give them a chance to grow.
Hello there. Thank you so much for watching, for being here. I appreciate you so much. And if you can just take one little moment and help me make this podcast a success and support us, please just subscribe to my channel, like this video, and leave me a little comment. I want to hear from you. How's this landing for you? Is this interesting? What are you learning? What are your takeaways? Again, thank you for being here. I love you, and let's get back into it. So I find for a long time it was very difficult for me to actually come up with that list because right, what's familiar seems safe in our heads. How do you help people actually come up with that list? Like, do you have any guiding questions, advice? How to come up with it?
I always have them work off, it's opposites, right? So a lot of people like myself who've had relational trauma over the years, not everybody, but a lot of people I talk to, including myself, I find it easier to focus on the negative. We just do, right? I know exactly what I don't want, but I had a really hard time claiming what I do want, right? And getting the words for it because I never had it. And so I'm always like, make a list of everything you don't value. Think back, think present, think past, right? What do you hate being exposed to? How do you hate being spoken to? What makes you feel unsafe? What makes you feel uncomfortable? What makes you feel insecure? And make a list of those and then map out why. How does it impact me? Mind, body, how does it impact my behavior? What's the full ripple effect of me being exposed to this behavior? Once you get what you don't like, guess what? What you do like is just the opposite of that. And that's where, they'll sit in front of me and they'll go, maybe you have a better word for this. but I wrote that I hate when people are dishonest. And I go, then you value honesty. And they're like, I hate when people don't tell me the full story. They're not completely open. I go, so you value transparency and you value people who are forthcoming and open, right? Like you just work in opposites. And then that list of things you value is going to be really uncomfortable at first, but it's going to be eye-opening and it's going to be clarifying. And then you're going to realize how many times you've been leaning into the other ones, and it's really going to shift the experience.
Yeah, totally. And I think what you're speaking to is like really important for all of us to take in, because a lot of times we think our needs are too much because we didn't get them met in childhood. And especially like the ones we need the most are the ones we didn't get met in childhood. But of course, we're going to need it the most, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if there's a wound there, then of course I'm going to want it more and more and more and more and more and more. And I think, the narrative from people that say like, well, just meet those needs yourself and then you'll need them less from other people. No, listen, I love quality time. I love attention. I'm a middle child. I love attention. I spend so much time with myself. I give myself so much attention that no, I want attention from other people, not the same, right? Meeting your own needs does a lot for setting the tone and the standard for what you want in your relationships. It does kind of like cut the edge off of the dependency that you have, right? Like if someone can't meet that need, I'm okay. However, it's, yeah, you're going to want it more. I want openness and honesty. I didn't get that as a kid. I want, complete transparency and regulation and, groundedness, all these things. It's like, it's what drives my behavior these days. I have to point out the elephant in the room because my entire childhood was everybody going, shh, pretend it's not there. I can't do that. Right. So that shapes who you are. I think that's another thing people don't realize is like, yeah, your entire childhood, your adult relationships, bad, good, in between, all has created you. So you're not going to fully heal before you move on to the next one. It's a part of you. It's created what you want now. So lean into that.
I really love your, maybe we call it annoyance with, because I have it when I hear like, just meet all your own needs. And then I have all these clients who are like, shouldn't I just like not have needs because I should meet all my own needs? And I'm like,
Mm.
we are relational beings. Guess what? But can you speak a bit about that? Maybe like the difference between when people are really codependent, all the way to codependence versus when they are trying to play this game of like, I need nothing, which is, I guess, like you could say anxious and avoidant attachment, right? And bouncing between the two as well.
Yeah, the extremes, but I think in general, right, they're self-protective. Right? If I'm scared nobody's going to meet my needs, then I'm going to lean into, well, maybe I could just meet all of my needs and then I'll be enough for somebody else. Right? And then the opposite end of that. So but I think that's something that's important to be mindful of, is that's a natural part of healing, is to go to those extreme ways of thinking and behaving, because we overcompensate. So if we were told we were too needy in past relationships, then we are going to try to avoid ever hearing that again. And so what, we're going to become hyper independent. And then you're going to realize after some more experiences, well, that's not working for me either. So how do I get back to the middle, right? The scales do balance out. They do, if you're working on it, not if you're hiding from it, but you're always going to go to the exact opposite that you once were in. And so it's going to take, I think what I see, I don't know if you see this being, in this field, is like a lot of people tend to do this with just like healing in general. They go, nowadays it's like, well, we don't need talk therapy. We just need
Totally.
somatics. And you're like, no, 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 no. Wait, they do two different things, guys. and that's just another form of it, right? They're like, oh, wait, this didn't work for me. This must be the missing piece. This is bad and this is good. And you're like, oh, okay. No, what if it's both, right? I need this and this, right? I need to meet my needs, and is what I always tell clients. Like, let's focus on the and. It's not an either or. Because the minute you catch yourself eliminating the and, I want more communication. And I'm okay if I don't always get it, right? That shows you growth versus they're not giving me what I want. If they don't give me what I want, then they're a narcissist, or they're a whatever label we want to throw on it that day.
I love that you're saying that, and I couldn't agree more. And I think it works really well. Unfortunately, like people latch onto it online when they hear these grand statements because it feeds into
Yeah.
a trauma narrative, and
Yeah.
somehow it just makes us feel more safe. Like, oh, okay, I'll just latch on to this one truth, and okay, that's easy for my brain, but that's really not how it works. So you mentioned that. Okay, so we have our list and we're starting to date and we're giving people chances.
Yeah.
What is the point where we know this is not good? Like, this is not working for me?
When more of their behavior is aligning with what you don't value. right? And there's nuance to this, right? So I have methods for all of this, but like one thing that I see commonly is people going, well, how do I know that like they're doing something that's on my list of things I don't value? How do I know whether to give it more time, communicate with them? Like, how do I know it's not just like a human error, right? Flaw, misstep, whatever. And that's where I go, okay, let's do this 333 strategy that I have. Let's communicate with them. Sometimes it's not even communicating a boundary. Sometimes it's just communicating, I value this. I would love more of this. And give them a chance to hear you and show up. And if they don't, give them, depending on what it is, obviously, sometimes it's one and done, but other times it's like, okay, well, maybe I can now communicate a boundary. Like, I'm going to need more communication, or this is really not going to work for me. And now there's a limit on it. And maybe they still don't show up. Okay, well, then this might not be for you, because if that is something that makes you feel safe in the relationship and seen and heard and connected and whatever else, then you can't continue beyond those three, max three. Because beyond that, now you're just trying to change somebody. And I think a lot of people get stuck there. Yeah.
So, hi. Many times.
I've been there. I get it.
That's how we learn. And I hope people are also hearing that if you have had trauma, the experience of actually having the trauma play out again and again is really important, actually, and very helpful, even though it's painful and it sucks and it's shit. And I wish we didn't have to do that, but it's very difficult to see those things clearly if we don't actually re-experience them, because they seem like very normal.
People, I think, don't understand that when you've been through it once, right? If you learn from that experience, here's what I need to do differently moving forward for myself, right? Often in those situations, we couldn't control, we didn't have agency. And that's the missing piece moving forward. And sometimes we have to end, I can't tell you how many bad relationships I ended up in after I was like working through the trauma of the past abusive ones. I was like, no, I got it. I've got it. Let me start dating again. And then I'd start dating again. And I was in the same situation. I was like, oh, what do I need to learn from this? That, not like I had to end up in the bad situation to learn the lesson, but clearly for me, in a lot of those situations, I was still just trying to please a man. I was still just trying to, get picked. I was still trying to do these things that I thought, well, no, I've got some boundaries down. I'm good. But, well, why are you sticking around when you're still uncomfortable, Amy? Right? Well, maybe I overlooked that one because it didn't come up in the last relationship. And everything is serving a purpose if we allow it to. I'm not saying we need to experience these bad things in order to learn, but when we have ended up in situations and we didn't choose them, we can reclaim agency from them by pulling out, what can I do differently? Right? Take my power back in this situation, because that was the one thing that was stripped from me in that situation. And now I can implement that into the next one. And sure, there will be another layer that I've overlooked, that I've missed, because it is a very layered process and you never get to the finish line. Ever. That's what people hate.
Yeah, but life would be so boring. Like,
oh, it would. What would we do?
I hate it too. I'm not gonna lie, but like, what are we gonna do if everything was just perfect?
Well, no, wait, I'm gonna disagree, but because nothing ever is gonna be perfect,
exactly.
Right? Like, we'll get to a place where we are. I know, like when I got to this place in my relationship now, and I had my son, and I was like, Joy, what do I don't know this emotion very well, right? And like, how do I live without solving a problem every day? That's all I knew for a lot of my life. And how do I live without crisis every day? Because
Totally.
that's the thing that was most familiar to me. And so it's still a struggle. It just looks different, you know? And that's the layered process that people are like, wait, Amy, I'm going to be in crisis my whole life. No, you are not. No, you will get to a point where you're in a position that you once wished you were in, but now you're like, oh, I have peace. I remember the first time I lived alone, and I was like, wait, I could just sit on my couch and not worry about somebody yelling at me. I didn't know what to do with that. I was like, peace? What? This is foreign. And just feeling into that experience was like, here's my work, right? But I don't know. I don't know. Do you know many people that live life not connect? Because I guess I don't know or have conversations with too many people that are not living life through a lens of like growth. So I don't know
Not
what it's
anymore.
like.
Same. Not anymore. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, so I don't know what that's like, you know? You're like, "Wait, what? You just wake up and like don't think about in your inner world?"
Yeah,
It's
totally.
interesting.
No, it's I would be very bored with those kinds of people, I think. But growth looks different for every person, in my
Yeah.
life. So, but I totally know what you mean. Like this is a new experience for me where like I call a friend and we catch up and I'm like, yes, I don't have so much to say. Or it's not that difficult things aren't happening, but it's like not crisis, all out crisis all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, or things are happening and you're like, "But I'm good and I don't need to." Like my updates to people sometimes, even though there's things going on, are like, no, it's fine. It's the usual. And not because I don't want to share. I'm just like, it's not serving me to get into it. And I'm good with it. Right. I've got a grasp on it. I'm good with it. I'm good how I'm showing up in it. So I don't need your perspective. I don't want to open that floodgate. So I'm okay. I'm
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, I love that. And maybe that's also the hypervigilance calming down that we don't have to ask every single person about every single thing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because what's the payoff, right? Like in the past, for me, it was complaining to connect.
Yes.
I was like, oh, I got together with my girlfriend for brunch, and it was like, yeah, let's find a million things about our partners or our kids or whatever to complain to connect versus, hey, this food is really good right now and I'm really enjoying the coffee that I'm drinking, right? Like to me, I used to admire people who could sit at a meal and just enjoy their food and be that present, because my brain was always like, oh, I'm gonna have to have this conversation later, and like, what was I'm processing the last one I had, and I was on Friday and it was last Sunday when I was sitting there, and I didn't know what that was like. So I think that was the payoff for me back then. Oh, I can feel closer to this person if I share the struggle.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. What have been some of the biggest shifts in your own life that you feel like and like the tools as well that got you to this point?
Definitely identifying my values. That's why I lead with that conversation with everyone, because that changed my life for good. I didn't have a concept of boundaries. Nobody used that word growing up. They weren't allowed for. um, that changed my life. In terms of other things that changed my life, that's such a big question because I feel like there's so much. I think recognizing that I have choice is a big one for me as well, because I for a long time, I mean ever since I could remember, when I was like a teenager and I was begging to go to therapy and I was like all those things, I felt like life was happening to me And I know it feels that way when we're kids, because we don't have the finances and the ability and the independence to like choose certain things. So I felt very much at the mercy of my circumstances and everyone around me. And I think that stuck with me, honestly, for probably until my 30s, where then it suddenly, I realized one day, wait a minute, I can choose. I can choose the people I spend my time with. I'm not obligated to, you know, I am still around my family, even though we do have difficult relationships with each other, but it's a choice. And I think that's key here, is that's vastly different than just being like, I have to, family and blah, blah, blah. Like, no, I choose to, and I'm very connected because of my values as to why I choose that, despite it being difficult at times. That changes everything I choose, hard, easy, whatever, stressful, because I'm choosing it and taking that like radical responsibility of my life is, I guess, another one that completely connects to that, full ownership of what I want, what I do, what I think, what I feel, and not blaming it on other people or circumstances or my past.
I love that.
Thank
That's beautiful. Can you talk about when we get into a hypervigilant trigger?
you.
What are some of that trigger where you're like, am I in danger with this person in front of me, or what's going on? And the hypervigilance comes in. What are some of the tools that you share with clients around that?
So you can't do anything in that moment. Not that that's what they wanted to hear, but you got to wait until after you come down from that, right? And you're in a more grounded place to then, I always have people reflect backwards, right? So that kind of makes no sense because reflection is backwards, right? But like, look back on what activated you, because it wasn't sometimes not in that moment. Sometimes it is beyond, like the day before or an hour before or a word they said. And so I have people look for what was the sensory cue that activated you. When did you start feeling anxious or angry or, unsafe? When did that come up for you? And write it out or speak it out loud. Get it out of your body and hear yourself say it. Because when we can identify the activation point, we can change the whole trajectory of what this trigger is. If I know I'm sensitive to a word or a phrase or a tone of voice or a facial expression, then I know the minute, you have it, or like, my fiance has it, or my kid has it, or my best friend has it, that's going to rub at me. And so I need to get to know that, right? And I need to understand, what is that connected to? And what is that reaction telling me inside of me? What did it used to mean that it might not be meaning when you do it, or he does it, or she does it, right? If I can, from a grounded place, look at where it started and what was it, and get as close to that as I can, then I now feel more in control the next time that potentially comes up for me, because then I can get a clear strategy in place. Like, okay, I'm aware that when people roll their eyes at me, it makes me feel, it makes me think, it makes me do all of these things. Knowing that about myself, here's what I'm going to do. Maybe I need a somatic tool. Maybe I need to, the minute I see that happen, I need to tell myself to pause and excuse myself from the conversation, right? So I have space from that threat. Maybe it's something that is a word or a phrase, and you could take it one way or the other. So maybe it is a boundary that you have to set, but it's going to be one of those that you need to do in that moment to support yourself. And that's the goal, because a lot of people get activated like this and they blame it on the other person and they go, you make me feel, and you need to fix that. No, they can't. They could try, but they're not going to, because it's going to come up in a different font with someone else down the road. So let's, again, reclaim agency in that situation, identify what was activating us. And now, when you do that, like now I could rattle off to anyone all of my triggers. I could tell you any word, phrase, facial expression, body language, whatever they do that's going to rub me the wrong way. I mean, and some of us share those experiences. Like somebody doing this to me when I'm talking, it's going to send me, right?
I hate that too.
Might not. And so, because I know that, right? Some people that doesn't bother them.
Right.
They just keep talking through it. So it's not a universal experience, but it is common. A lot of us don't like it. And there's a reason specific to you, specific to me. We might share similarities there, but it's specific. So for me, like my strategy is if I see that phone go up, I stop talking immediately. I don't argue with them. I don't go, hey, are you not listening to me? I don't have a whole debate about it. To me, you're not listening. I don't do that to people. I just stop talking. And then they look up. Shocker. Oh, no, I'm listening. Go ahead. No. You let me know when you're done and I'll continue, right? And so sometimes it's as benign as that. But like there's other ones where you're like, okay, and I'm going to need to excuse myself from this environment, or I'm going to need to hang up the phone right now and take care of myself. I remember when I first started doing this for myself, I had to literally go into another room in our apartment away from my fiance, and I had to like physically shake it off of me. I was doing heel drops. I was shaking it out. I was deep breathing. And sometimes he'd like pop in and I was like, go away. I'm going to have a reaction and I don't want to. So you need to just stay away from me until I am grounded and I am calm. Sometimes nowadays foam rolling really helps me with that reaction in my body. When I feel it emerge, I go, I'm going to just go find my foam roller and everybody leave me alone. And I roll on it. And it's that deep pressure in my body, calms me right down. So we find the tools. There's no one toolkit for it, as you know, I'm preaching to the choir, but we find what works for us and then, execute in that moment. But we can't do that if we are blind to what is activating us.
Yeah, I love that. Yes. And it's so important for people to hear that they are allowed to ask the other person to change their behavior. Even if it is your trigger from your childhood, you are allowed to ask lovingly for someone to, hey, that word just sets me off. Do you mind like using a different word?
Totally. I ask to not be spoken to through a phone. So put the phone down if we're going to communicate. And then we come to a collaborative agreement, right? We come to an agreement of like, there's going to be a designated time to have these important conversations where we will be uninterrupted. But yeah, you can absolutely say to somebody that word impacts me this way. And I cannot hear it, don't want to hear it. I don't find it respectful. I don't find it supportive. So let's not use it. And, if they don't like that, then that says a lot though in those moments too. I think that if we don't speak up, we never actually see if somebody is willing to meet us the way we need to be met. Right?
Totally.
We see their resistance. We see their unwillingness if we actually speak up for ourselves.
Absolutely. And it's just showing you something and then you go back to your list, right?
Yes, you go back to your list and you go, okay, how am I going to honor this? Right? How am I going to adjust my expectations of this person, or is this person just not for me? And that's okay either way.
Yeah. I think one of the last questions I want to ask you is about apologies, because I think this is very, very tricky. And you talk about this a lot. And in particular, um, when people think that it wasn't ill-intentioned, their behavior, but it hurt somebody else. Or honestly, I have this where I feel like, but that person hurt me more in that situation, but we're both hurt.
Mm.
What's kind of like a recipe for apologies? What is it all about?
So it's not just an I'm sorry. Unfortunately, we would love to just plaster I'm sorry, in these situations and call it a day. But we need so much more than that in order to rebuild trust and safety in our connections. And so what we need is not just their intention stated, we need them to acknowledge the impact that their actions or their words had on us. If we don't have that acknowledged, I mean, my God, we don't feel seen. We don't feel understood. We feel like they don't even fully understand how hurt we might be, right? We need them to understand, why did they do and say. I just made a video about this. This is funny. I feel like I'm like quoting myself from the video I just filmed, but why did they do and say what they did and said, right? If they don't know why they did it or why they said it. How many times have you talked to someone and they've been like, yeah, I don't know why I did that. Red flag. What? You don't know. You don't, but go sit with yourself for a second and check in. Like, what came up for you that made you act that way or say those things, right? The I don't know is, they've got to disconnect from their own inner world and they don't want to explore that. That's a red flag for me. I need you to understand why you did it and why you said it. Because if you don't, there's no chance at you changing it. There's none. There's what? Potential for obedience. You're gonna say, okay, well, you told me not to, so I just won't. But there's no true connection to that behavioral change, so it's not going to last. If we don't have that deeper understanding of the repair process and we just go, well, they said I'm sorry, they said it wasn't their intention, cool. Step 1 and 2, wild. That's what. But do you feel safe? Are you going to be able to trust them again? And most people are like, I don't know, I guess time will tell. Yeah, sure shit will. Because, like, do they know what they need to change moving forward? Well, I told them not to do it again. Okay. Do they know how to do that? Usually not. So we need them to understand why they did and said it. And that requires self-reflection and self-exploration and accountability. If all those pieces are missing, I mean, I'm sorry is just some nice words, but it's not going to actually move us through a conflict or a miscommunication or a breach of trust or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. Wow, I love that. Where's that video going to be on your Instagram?
Yes.
Good. Everybody should.
Yeah, I could. You got me on my soapbox. I could go on and on about that one for a while.
I love it. So good. Is there anything else you want to mention that we haven't covered?
I mean, I think we covered a lot of like the main topics that I talk about. It was a really good, full circle conversation, I feel like.
Me
But
too. I loved
yeah,
it. Yeah, awesome.
good.
So tell us how people can find you and work with you. And of course, we'll link all the links in the show notes.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I hang out most on Instagram at Amy the Life Coach. But I'm also on TikTok, same username, Facebook, if you're on Facebook these days. But my website is amyfiedler.com, and you can find all of my courses, downloads. I have a boundary playbook, which actually goes over that values exercise that I give to my clients. So that's a great place to start if this conversation really resonated with you. And it really taps into a lot of what we talked about today.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here and all your wisdom.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.